I'm Claudia Del Pozo. I'm director of the EON Resilience Lab at CMINDS. CMINDS is a Mexican and American NGO that works a little bit like a think and do tank at the intersection of new technologies, especially AI, as well as social and environmental impact. And so that means two things. That means pilot projects, and that means public policy recommendations.
Awesome. Great to meet you. And let's jump straight into some questions.
Sure,
So you're doing incredible work in international AI and strengthening the AI ecosystem in Mexico and Latin America. Could you talk a little more about your work there and what kinds of projects are you working on?
Yeah, sure. So we have a lot of projects. From the EON Resilience Lab, we focus on projects that are about creating resilience among citizens, but also companies, governments, communities. So that leads us to work. And I mean, this is for all of CMINDS, in fact, not just the EON Resilience Lab. We work with all kinds of partners. So often our projects will involve government, they'll involve academia, civil society, industry. And I'll just pinpoint some of the interesting projects that we've been leading. So one of them has been an amazing adventure. 2 or 3 years ago now, we worked with the British Embassy and Oxford Insights, a UK company, to create the basis for what a Mexican national AI strategy could look like. From there, we took on one of the recommendations that we emitted, which was to create a coalition that would actually create the strategy afterwards. So we led the AI 2030 MX coalition until yesterday, in fact, when we transferred the coordination to another organization. And just a few months ago, well, actually last year, we published Mexico's National AI Survey, which was really interesting to see that most people felt curious about AI. The options were, are you excited? Are you curious? Or are you scared? And we're glad it wasn't scared. And then this year, like 2 months ago, we published the National AI Agenda for Mexico, which was coordinated by CMINDS, and me and a colleague wrote as well the ethics section with a few partners from other organizations and universities. And so right now it's in Spanish, and the summary is going to come out in English and in Spanish as soon as I get around to finishing checking it. And another project that I'm really excited about, actually two, I'll just mention two other ones that we're working on right now. One of them is, so with the entire pandemic, we've had to reshift the perspective of our projects. And one of the challenges we've noticed is schools moving onto digital platforms. How are they, well, do they know really how to protect the data of their students? How secure is it? We've heard of a lot of hacks. We've heard of, undesired people showing undesirable content in Zoom meetings, or just popping up and just a random person in the class on Zoom. So we're creating a guide and public policy recommendations on how to help academic institutions, especially for high school and preschool. I'm not sure of all the names in English, but basically when you're younger than 18, to have a safer transition to the online world. So that's one of those projects that we're doing with the Inter-American Development Bank. And then another one, which is super exciting as well, is one that we're leading with Facebook. So when you ask me who we work with everybody, to say, okay, so more and more AI systems are involved in more and more of what happens to us, of our daily life. You use Netflix, you use AI, you use Spotify, you use AI, but more and more you ask for a credit. And there's an AI system that's going to determine whether you're fit for the credit or not. And you have a right to know how that decision is being made. You have a right to know, I'm saying you have a right, it's not legal, but ethically speaking, you should have a right to know that an algorithm was involved in that decision. And you should have a right to understand in what sense it was involved. Like, was it a human who made the decision in the end, or was it an algorithm? So we're working with Facebook and the Inter-American Development Bank, as well as the Mexican data regulators called INAI, to create public policy on transparency and explainability of AI systems. So that refers to exactly you as a consumer knowing what's going on with the service or the product you're requesting and how AI is being used. And the first part of that, which is with Facebook, is working with 14 Mexican companies to implement a transparency and explainability prototype, see how it goes, what were the challenges, and then create public policy recommendations for ENI. So that's super exciting.
All these projects sound super exciting. So to add on to this, so how do you see the international AI environment evolving over the next decade or maybe the next few decades?
Yeah. We talk about decades, but like with the pandemic, there's this incredible figure that's like we've moved 10 years in 3 months or something like that in terms of digitalization. So definitely that's the first step to be able to use AI. How do I see it evolving? I think more and more countries are going to have an AI strategy, which is important simply in the sense of knowing that the entire country is moving in the same way. So for instance, in Mexico, we really promoted AI for social impact because Mexico is a very unequal country. And there's a lot of challenges in terms of access to health, access to education, etc. So I think each country's kind of going to develop their own strategy and see where they want to focus. There's a lot of a talk about an AI race, which I think, yeah, there's a race between the US and China, sure, but the rest of the world's not involved in that race. The rest of the world is just trying to use AI for what makes most sense for their country. And no one's playing a game of saying we're the best. We'll leave that to the US and China to define between the two of them. But for instance, there's a quote by the Minister of Economy, I think it's of Finland, who says, we'll never be the best at developing AI. Like, you have to be honest, Finland is a small country. But what we do with it, that's what matters. And I think that's where we're going to be moving forward to. Each country is going to move towards what matters for the country. So I know that in India, they're also using AI a lot for social impact. Latin America, there's a lot of use cases, like impressive use cases of how AI is being used for different social, economical, educational challenges. So I think we're going to see more and more AI, and that's awesome. But the challenge is, and I was in an interview with one of these companies in Latin America that's using AI. I can't remember for what it was, but it was for something really impressive. And we told them, and so what do you think about responsible AI? Like how can you make sure that your results are biased, that you're not creating more inequality than you want to fix? And their answer was, we're just a small group of people who want what's best for our country. And that's an awesome attitude, but unfortunately, AI doesn't fit I just want to do something good attitude. It's more of a complex tool that can go completely wrong when you're trying to do something with very good intentions. So I know the world is going to go towards more and more AI adoption, but I hope the world will also take into consideration the need for protection and for transparency. So hopefully we'll be seeing more and more regulatory sandboxes. I know Facebook did one in Singapore, and more policy prototypes, which we're doing here in Mexico. And the difference is if you have a sandbox, it means there's already like some sort of law in place and you're just testing it to see if it makes sense and what you think of it. And a public policy prototype is when there is no law in place, there is no regulation, so you're suggesting something.
Awesome. And to sort of add on to this, what applied areas of AI excite you the most?
Honestly, this whole area of transparency and explainability, like ethical AI. So there's a lot of categories to ethical AI, and we're actually working on a guide for entrepreneurs, also with Facebook, on how to do ethical AI. Because yeah, of course you can respect the law, and I hope you do when you use AI, but that really is not going to guarantee that you're not putting any citizens in danger. And so I think these conversations and beyond conversations, we need to move beyond conversations now and actually have projects like the one we're carrying out. There's another project that's awesome in the US called the Algorithmic Justice League, where they're really focused on making sure that the impact of AI is fair. So fairness and justice, that's another fascinating area. And in the US, I suppose you guys know this, but what happens a lot is that the bias that's in society gets reflected into AI recommendations. So for instance, there's been a lot of racism against African Americans in the US, and that's being repeated by an AI system, except that AI systems are massive and they have a huge potential for impact. We're talking about impacting, like maybe an AI system makes a decision for everybody in the country. That's humongous. And I mean, you really can't have biased systems at such a level. So I'm excited to get more and more into those conversations about how we can make sure AI is fair and is really benefiting the population. There's this figure that says AI is going to add 5% to Latin American GDP by 2030. And I'm like, that's awesome, but what does it mean for the people? Is it going to improve, inequality? What does it mean?
Yeah, those are definitely really important. Also, you're doing amazing work in ethical AI. So what are some of your biggest concerns related to the state of machine learning today?
Yeah, I think it's just this, like the lack of consideration for the need to be ethical. I think, ethical AI has been a conversation for a while now, and it's kind of been like CSR, like, oh yeah, of course it matters. And it's like companies know and startups know that it's something that matters. So they'll tell you, yeah, of course we're doing it. And when you ask them, okay, but how are you doing it? Because we've interviewed a lot of companies for the guide that we're creating, and we told them we're not going to scold you if you don't know. We just want to know what you don't know so that we can tell you and you can do it. And a lot of them would say, yeah, actually, what do you mean exactly ethical AI after saying we're doing it? So it's funny because people know they should be saying they're doing it, but they don't know exactly how to do it. And for example, there's a lot of guidelines, like there's the OECD guideline, there's loads of ones about how to use AI. So AI should not be used for harm, etc. And they're awesome guidelines, but when it comes down to implementing them, how? Like what? And that's very confusing. And that's what our guide is trying to touch upon, like really make it feasible for companies to say we're doing ethical AI, or our AI systems work in an ethical way would be a better way to put it. So yeah, I think those are the challenges that we're facing there and that we're trying to solve.
Would you say you're optimistic about the future of responsible AI, or do you think more needs to be done in the community to address current ethical pitfalls?
I'm optimistic regarding the potential of AI, definitely. Regarding responsible AI, I hope that the world kind of takes a break and steps back to say, this is going to create a lot of harm if we don't do it well. And there's already enough use cases and already enough times that it's happened for there not to be more, So I'm hopeful, and I guess I'm part of the people who are trying to make it happen, and we need to be more of these people. I know there's a lot across the world, in the US and Mexico and Latin America. Some countries are maybe more aware of it than others. So I'm gonna say I'm hopeful. Well, I'm hopeful, but I'm also like, but we need to move a little more. It's not gonna happen by itself. AI is just a system. If you want it to behave in an ethical way, that's human. That's not AI. That's completely human. And that depends how you're gonna, create your systems, how you're gonna develop your systems, and how you're gonna make all the operations that go around it to reach a decision. All of that design is gonna be human, and you're the one who's gonna need to make it ethical.
Now, switching gears here, could you talk a little bit more about your trajectory and how did you get into AI and tech policy?
Yeah, like I was telling you earlier, it was a bit random. But since I was little, I was fascinated by the whole science and tech world. I had this like magazine that came weekly to my house about the latest developments, and I was like, whoa, I'm gonna be a scientist when I grow up. And so when I went to study international business at Warwick Business School in the UK, and then I had my year abroad. And for my year abroad, I decided to intern at IBM in Germany. And I was really excited because finally I was entering that tech world. And I was also thinking, but how do I enter the tech world? I don't want to be coding all the time. I want to see a bigger picture. I want to see how we can use tech to help people. So my internship at IBM was awesome. It was super interesting. But I was in the sales and marketing department. So the idea was like, how can you sell our product? And I was like, but we could use your product for so many impactful things, I want to see that part. So it left me a little frustrated with like, is this like this intersection between impact and technology? Does it exist? And if so, where and how the heck do I get into it? So anyway, I finished my studies. I moved to Mexico. I found a job here. I looked for something more interesting and I was like, okay, I want to get into impact. I want something that's impactful. So I found a job that was about mobility and how improving mobility in Mexico City can improve people's lives. And I was like, okay, let's do this. And I think I was really lucky because the director of that organization, who is my current boss, she really gave me a chance. Because the challenge when you come from, I studied business, right? When you come from when you come from a non-social area to enter the social area, it was really hard. It was really hard. Everyone was like, well, we like your profile, but you don't have experience in social realms. I'd be like, well, just give it to me and then I will. So anyway, so this woman took a chance on me and I did the project really, really well. And she was studying at Singularity University at the time. So we started talking more and more about like tech and how it could be interesting to continue the organization that I was working in and her organization. To continue generating impact, the idea was to promote social and economic development in Mexico and Latin America, but how we could do that, putting technology at the center. So her and me and another colleague kind of designed this new organization, which is now C-Minds, and is based a lot on her previous organization, the founders organization, into something that would reflect that really fascination for new technologies. So I started out with open banking projects, which is, if you don't know that topic, it's really fascinating. It's about how we can open more data from the financial industry, and data runs AI, so better decisions. All right, if you do it responsibly. And then we moved into blockchain, and then we moved into AI, and we've just really stuck with AI. It's just really been fascinating to kind of accompany the growth of the Mexican ecosystem and in Latin America, and see how we can help, see how we can also involve policymakers, the Senate, different areas of government, etc. So a bit of a random journey.
That's awesome. Like, that's just a super great story. So to move on, are there any topics or courses you think undergrads or grad students should take to be sure that their technical courses connect with society? And if you could design the perfect responsible AI starter kit for students interested in the field, what would it include?
My goodness. I think it really depends because, for instance, I'm not technical at all. And in fact, until very recently, like 2 months ago, we didn't have anyone technical on our team, because there's different ways that you can promote responsible AI. So you can be the one designing it. You can also be more at the level of C-Minds, which is like seeing how we can work with the people who develop it and the government to find a way to make it work in a way that won't harm the environment and society. So there's a lot of ways you can get into this. So if you're studying a technical degree, that's awesome. I mean, your way into this ecosystem is going to be a little easier. And try just taking, I don't know, have you thought about philosophy? Have you thought about sociology? Just take what interests you, and that will be helpful. Don't take it just because I said take philosophy. So you're like, oh, Jesus, it's so boring, but some girl said I should take it. Take what really interests you and that's different from what you're doing. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's French literature. It'll always bring you a different perspective and make your knowledge more rounded. So for instance, on my team, so I studied business. Our founder studied international relations. On my team, I have two philosophers. One is a philosopher and communications major, and the other one is a philosopher who specialized in medieval Arab philosophy. So you might think that has nothing to do with what we do. And in fact, the Arab part might not, the medieval part does not. But what does is just this new way of thinking, this different way of thinking that both of them have, and they can bring to the table. So I think if you're already studying something technical, awesome. Try to round it off. Like Megan, you told me you're doing business, right? I think that's awesome. If you add business to it, it adds something, you know, and why not? I don't know how easy it is to take elective modules in the US, but why not throw in something else? Just to anything that interests you, really, just to have perspective from other fields. And also be aware that to work in this world, you don't need to be a technical person. You can bring skills from different perspectives, maybe public policy, maybe you enter more through that window. Maybe you're part of like the ethical AI team in a company that just kind of talks with the tech people and makes sure that everything that's going on in the decision making system is responsible. So there's a lot of ways, and I'd say just do what interests you. Because if you're doing something that doesn't, you're not really going to get into it. You're not really going to get a different frame of mind, and it's just going to be a waste of time.
That's great advice. And kind of to add on to this, do you have any final advice for younger students interested in this field?
Yeah, don't be afraid to reach out to people. Like just if there's someone you want to talk to, just write to them in LinkedIn. And you're going to tell me, no, but I don't have LinkedIn Premium. I can't write to them. When you just connect, it says you can connect with a message. Just write something there. But just try to connect with them. Worst they can say is no. Best that can happen is they say yes, and they recommend you somewhere. Recommendation letters have always helped me. Whether even if it's just someone you know and they know how you work, but maybe you've not worked together. But going back, just reach out to the people that you want to talk to and harass them. My current boss, I don't think she's ever realized it, but I harassed her really bad on LinkedIn to try to get an interview with her. And I've done that for all the interviews that I've wanted to have. So yeah, and also for women, well, actually, one thing that I learned is it would be awesome. It's awesome to have mentors, people who can kind of guide you along your way. How do you find mentors is a question I'm still kind of figuring out. But if there's anyone who's older and in the field or just, has worked a bit and they can guide you, I think that's useful, and have regular calls with them, and so that you can, make the most out of their lessons learned and not kind of repeat mistakes that would be obvious to them. I think that's really good. And also just I think women also count on women, try to find women in the field that can help you get in touch. And women in the field are always very open to help out other women because we know the challenges that it can bring. So I guess this whole blah blah of recommendations I made is like, don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to harass people. They're going to have to answer if they want you to stop harassing them. And yeah, just don't go alone. Don't go alone, I think, is my recommendation.
Yeah, well, this is all really great advice, and it was great having you today, and thank you. Yeah.
No, thank you so much, you guys, for organizing this. I'm so happy. And if anyone wants to reach out to me, if you have questions, my email address is claudia@cminds.co. So yeah, feel free to reach out. I hope this was helpful.